Good evening, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Wanted to put a video out tonight and talk to everybody about foreign trade zones, custom duties, residents, a few different things throughout time that are all kind of synonymous and show us that it's the same thing, just a different day. It goes right along with the old adage or the maxim of equity. What is done is what ought to be done. And so I'm going to show you some things here tonight that show you that they're still following the same principle. They've just changed the usage of the wording around and everything. So basically, it's all in accordance to the way the United States corporation operates in regards to what's known as foreign trade zones. And so what I'm going to do, first we're going to watch a little bit of this video I got. This is off YouTube, and I'm sorry about, we're going to pay attention to the words spoke here. So I'm sorry about any non-clarity. Let me see if I can just hold it for this section. Pay attention to the words here. Perfect timing for an ad. Pay attention.
At that point, what happened became standard imperial practice for 4 centuries. They were forced to take an oath immediately, never again to rebel against Pharaoh and Egypt. At the same time, it was made plain to them that they had to hand in taxes, the same kind of taxes that the Egyptian peasants had to hand in whenever Pharaoh or his ministers asked for them. And finally, they were obliged to give up their young children.
Tutmosis spares the lives of the rebel leaders.
Okay. Everybody caught that, right? Everybody caught that, right? No sound or very low. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me see if we can do it again. Because this is important, guys.
It's time for Tutmosis to show his skills as statesman, to find a way to rule this conquered territory so far away from his capital in Thebes. Challenging the pharaoh is like blasphemy. Violators can expect no mercy. His generals demand the enemies be put to death. But the king of Kadesh begs for the lives of his family. Once more, Tutmosis ignores his generals and follows his own instincts in dealing with his enemies.
At that point, what happened became standard imperial practice for 4 centuries. They were forced to take an oath immediately, never again to rebel against Pharaoh and Egypt. At the same time, it was made plain to them that they had to hand in taxes, the same kind of taxes that the Egyptian peasants had to hand in whenever Pharaoh or his ministers asked for them. And finally, they were obliged to give up their young children.
Tutmosis spares the lives of the...
Okay, so did you get that one that time? Required to pledge an oath? pay taxes, and give up their children. And this is because they're considered an enemy of the state. Okay? Now, this is what's called the 5 Mile Act. Everybody can read that. The 5 Mile Act, or Oxford Act, or Nonconformist Act, 1665, was an act of the Parliament of England, passed in 1665 with a long title, an act for restraining nonconformists from inhabiting in corporations. It was one of the England's penal laws that sought to enforce conformity to established Church of England and to expel any who did not conform. Any who did not conform. It forbade clergymen from living within 5 miles of a parish from which they had been expelled, unless they swore an oath to never resist the king or attempt to alter the government of church or state. So right there we have 2 of the 3 elements. Swearing an oath to never resist the king, and or attempt to alter the government of church or state. The latter involved swearing to obey the 1662 prayer book. Thousands of ministers were deprived of a living under this act because they were then forced to administer according to the government of the church or the state. The government of the church or the state. It's not the government of God. It's the government of church or state. Okay. So we see a similarity in the 5 Mile Act and what we saw in the Planet Egypt excerpt there about making somebody pledge an oath, pay taxes, and give up their children. 19 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Chapter 1, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security, Department of the Treasury. This is where we see customs duties. Customs duties in relation to taxes. First, have you taken an oath that requires you now to be subject of the government that's requiring customs duties? 19 of the U.S. Code 81N, operation of zone as public utility, cost of customs service. What they're portraying is they are importing services, and the cost of importing those services through a public utility in an operation of a zone. Each zone shall be operated as a public utility, and all rates and charges for all services or privileges within the zone shall be fair and reasonable, and the grantee shall afford to all who may apply for the use of the zone and its facilities and appurtenances uniform treatment under like conditions, subject to such treaties or commercial conventions as are now in force or may hereafter be made from time to by the United States with foreign governments and the cost of maintaining the initial customs service required under this chapter shall be paid by the operator of the zone. What the hell is a zone? The term zone means a foreign trade zone as provided in this chapter. Zone means foreign trade zone. Thus, a foreign trade zone means a zone. They mean the same thing, folks. So anytime they say zone, they are talking about a foreign trade zone. Each foreign trade zone shall be operated as a public utility, and all rates and charges for all services or privileges within the zone shall be fair and reasonable, and the grantee. The term grantee means a corporation to which the privilege of establishing, operating, and maintaining a foreign trade zone has been granted. Means a corporation to which the privilege of establishing, operating, and maintaining a foreign trade zone has been established. This is the incorporation of every municipality, every county, every state within the Union of the United States. Each one of them operating as a grantee through a federal trade zone through their own charters. And they are grantees of the public utilities. And as grantee, it proves that there's a trust in play. This is not just a regular contract. This is a trust. Grantee, who's the beneficiary? Is it the public utility? Each zone shall be operated as a public utility. If the zone is the grantee and they are operating as a public utility, are they the beneficiary? Are they the trustee? If so, at what times? Remember, this is foreign trade zones, customs duties, Chapter 1A, foreign trade zones, operation of zone as public utility. And we know that foreign trade zone and zone are the same. They're synonymous. And so, as a public utility, it's being operated as a foreign trade zone under 19 U.S. Code 81N, customs duties. Title 19 of the United States Code, Section 81O, the very next section, talks about persons allowed to reside in the zone. No person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose presence is deemed necessary by the board. This speaks nothing of the private peoples. Private peoples cannot reside in a foreign trade zone. Do you comprehend what this is saying? No person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. The term board means the board which is established to carry out the provisions of this chapter. The board shall consist of the Secretary of Commerce, verifying it's a commercial transaction regulated by a commercial board, and if you are not allowed to be a resident because you are not a federal, state, municipal officer or agent whose resident presence is required or deemed necessary, then quit claiming residence. Quit claiming residence. Rules and regulations for employees entering and leaving a zone. The board shall prescribe rules and regulations regarding employees and other persons entering and leaving the zone. All rules and regulations concerning the protection of the revenue shall be approved by the Secretary of the Treasury. Employees. U.S. Code refers to U.S. employees, federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. They are persons, as we determined earlier, that perform the functions of public office. That is an employee. Exclusion from zone of goods or process of treatment. The board may at any time order the exclusion from the zone of any goods or process of treatment that in its judgment is detrimental to the public interest, health, or safety. Detrimental to the public interest, health, or safety. They don't give a rat's ass about yours. And remember, this is relative to customs duties and therefore taxes. This is just another tax code. Retail trade within zone. No retail trade shall be conducted within the zone except under permits issued by the grantee and approved by the board. Such permittees shall sell no goods except such domestic or duty-paid or duty-free goods as are brought into the zone from customs territory. Exemption from state and local ad valorem taxation of tangible personal property. Tangible personal property imported from outside the United States and held in a zone for the purpose of storage, sale, exhibition, repackaging, assembly, distribution, sorting, grading, cleaning, mixing, display, manufacturing, or processing intangible personal property produced in the United States and held in a zone for exportation, either in its original form or as altered by any of the above processes, shall be exempt from state and local ad valorem taxation. Either in its original form or as altered by any of the above processes shall be exempt from state and local ad valorem taxes. If I take and I order a bunch of automotive stereos, and I make a contract with an automobile manufacturer to sell them those radios, I can do so at a lower tax rate based on being a foreign trader, exempt from import-export taxes. And that allows them to then turn around and make the exchange without having to pay taxes from their end. Because instead of using import and export tax laws Again, I spoke of this earlier. Entrepot. Let me put this up here. A port, city, or other center to which goods are brought for import and export, and for collection and distribution. Import and export are separate, or other center to which goods are brought. They're not imported or exported, they are brought for import and export. As an American national, I can go to any local store and buy up all their car batteries for collection and distribution among my own private association, by whatever means I determine. If I believe it to be through our own private agreements, trade deals, then so be it. If I desire that I want Federal Reserve notes, or we come to an agreement where there's a good amount of Federal Reserve notes that we can exchange that I can then use for something else, so be it. That's amongst us. The entrepot cuts out the customs for import and export. Let me see if we can find it somewhere else. The term entrepot historically referred to a seaport or warehouse where goods would be imported for storage or trade before re-export, with no additional process taking place and with no custom duties imposed. Interesting, huh? Their use dates back to the days of long-distance, wind-powered sea routes, where they enabled traders to utilize part of a route to sell their goods without having to bear the risks and costs associated with long-distance travel over an entire route. In other words, I have the right to import and export from my own position, rather than to having to go through an import-export authority known as the United States to get some kind of supposed permission. Period. Historically, entrepôts were usually ports located at strategic points along the sea trade routes. Entrepôts flourished during the age of colonialism, when ships would travel long distances to bear goods such as commodities and spices from the colonies in Americas and Asia back to Europe. The benefit of the entrepôt in the past was that it removed the need for ships to travel the whole distance of the shipping route. Ships would sell their goods in the entrepôt, and the entrepôt would in turn sell them to another ship traveling a further leg of the route. The use of trade entrepôts has become largely obsolete as transportation options and safety have improved, and as the establishment of customs areas in seaports and airports have negated the financial benefits of entrepôts. Goods in customs areas are stored for re-export, and because they do not technically enter the country in which they are located, no customs duties are charged. What the United States is doing is charging import duties through taxation through all of its sales, saying that it has the import rights. You have just as much right to the benefit of entrepôt as they do. Get it? You have the right to secure your own border. Where is that border? Is it a territorial overlay through some legalese jurisdiction BS? I think not. This is just like your right to your patent right. Your right to place in, on, and for the record. Let my yea be my yea and my nay be my nay. I dispute the import. How can you charge me an import tax when I can just as well go to a electronic source and have it purchased that way through Entrepot? We can do this electronically. So think about this stuff, people. Anyway, there's a couple things on the Entrepot that I was talking about in regards to state and local ad valorem taxation exemption. They're talking about import and export and not mentioning the Entrepot. You have to realize, again, people, I beg you to do your research. The government. I disbelieved the government so much that I couldn't believe that the only two options we had was import and export. There's got to be other options. And I found it. Entrepot. Just because it's become obsolete in use doesn't mean it's no longer usable or that we don't have the right to use it. We have the right to assert that we don't have to accept their authority in a taxing position for the import. We can accept their rights or their duties and obligations for safety and health reasons, so that if it's coming from a foreign country and I happen to order fruits, I don't want to bring in foreign insects that might damage our own economy here. I can see sense in that. But to just negate my entire ability to do the same thing is a whole different issue. It's a violation of rights. And when we talk about foreign trade zones, we talk about 15 U.S.C., commerce and trade, export enhancement, export promotion, United States and Foreign Commerce Service. United States Foreign Commerce Service establishment. In general, the Secretary of Commerce. Remember we talked earlier, Secretary of Commerce. The board means the board which is established to carry out the provisions of this chapter. The board shall consist of the Secretary of Commerce, who shall be chairman and executive officer of the board, and the Secretary of the Treasury. Now we see the Secretary of Commerce again. Shall establish within the International Trade Administration. International Trade Administration. The United States and Foreign Commercial Service. The Secretary shall, to the greatest extent practicable, transfer to the Commercial Service. Means the United States and Foreign Commercial Service. The functions and personnel of the United States and Foreign Commercial Services. Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General, other personnel. The head of the Commercial Service shall be the Assistant Secretary of the Commerce and Director General of the Commerce Service, who shall be appointed by the President by and with the advice and consent of the Senate. The Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Director General of the Commercial Service may appoint commercial service officers and such other personnel as may be necessary to carry out the activities of commercial service. That's all it is. It's commercial service. Read this section, Statement of Purpose. Commercial service shall place primary emphasis on the promotion of exports of goods and services from the United States. Am I not allowed to get my goods and services from someone else within the states and without the United States. Yes. Period. Just because I'm in a landlocked state doesn't mean I have to use the United States Customs and Borders to get my products and goods. Doesn't mean I have to use them to import them or export them. I can obtain them through entrepot. What other? The Secretary shall district offices. The Secretary shall establish district offices. District, as in District of Columbia, district courts of the commercial services in any United States city in a region in which the Secretary determines that there is a need for federal government export assistance. Customs and Border Protection, Department of Homeland Security, Department of the Treasury, assistance in operation of zone as public utility for cost of customs services that is then applied to persons allowed to reside in zone. But persons are everybody that sits there and fills out rental applications, and the landlord has their property listed as residential property. All these mistakes in and on and for the record need to be corrected, people, and this is where it starts. You have to realize you're not part of this zone. Persons allowed to reside in the zone. No person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. So let's find out from the Secretary of Commerce and the rest of this board if this presence or the presence of this resident is deemed necessary for the carrying on of the functions of public office. I don't think so. I'm certainly not getting compensated for the functions of performing the functions of public office. This one here is a foreign trade zones, a primer prepared by IMUA. I want you guys to pay particular attention. IMUA's Loss Control and Claims Committee and Transportation Committee. Copyright 2010, inland, as I just said, landlocked, Marine Underwriters Association. What do people underwrite? They underwrite insurance claims. The Inland Marine Underwriters Association is a not-for-profit association focused on the commercial inland marine insurance line of business. Foreign trade zones. Inland marine insurance line of business. The purpose. IMUA was organized in 1930, the Great Depression, as a national trade association and rating bureau for all inland marine classes. In 1948, the Ratings Bureau activities of the IMUA were transferred to the Inland Marine Insurance Bureau, now defunct due to the 1944 U.S. Supreme decision in the Southeast Underwriters Association case. Today, IMUA is comprised of members, insurance and reinsurance companies that underwrite a significant portion of the commercial inland marine insurance in the U.S. Associate members are companies or organizations that provide products or services to the insurance industry. As soon as you fill out the SS5, Social Security Old Age Pension Insurance Fund application, you are an associate member providing services as an authorized representative, giving authorized signatures on all financial instruments, thereby securitizing them. You're the one doing it. And this is how they are presuming it. And I will post these links. I'll post all these links when I get done with the video. I will post my PayPal link along with all of these that we're going over. As well as this one here is a 37-minute YouTube video explaining foreign trade zones and how they operate. It is a very good video to listen to. I highly recommend it. Because I know I certainly haven't explained much about the trade zones themselves. I've explained a little bit about how the U.S. incorporates them into your local municipalities through utilization, utilities, and residents, through customs duties. Importing and exporting everything that comes and goes through all of your local grocers, your mercantile stores, jewelry stores. I don't care if it's a pawn store, it's a resale situation, a automobile dealership, any kind of services, printing services. There's services, and they're associate agencies. At least that's the presumption. It's one of the 12 presumptions of the courts. And so we have to pay attention and realize that these foreign trade zones, we have a right to operate as our own foreign trade zone, but we have the right to do so without being implied to be importing or exporting, but merely collection and distribution within our own private association. Pure and simple. So that when we go out and gather up all the toilet paper and run it and pull it all off the shelves, it's simply because we're providing a collection and distribution for people within our own private association that don't have to go to the stores and empty off the shelves. So people that do those kind of things, they act more like a corporation themselves, and instead of going to the local stores, they order direct from manufacturer. Private associations actually operating as corporations themselves, just like these municipalities that are operating as utilities. Operation of zone as a public utility. We're not operating as a public utility, we're operating as a private utility. We have the same rights. And we have the same right to have what they call residents, we call members, or family, or brothers, sisters, associates, whatever we deem necessary. It's the whole difference. So think about this stuff, people, and realize there's a lot of things, like I said, when we reviewed this video and how they're talking about you got to have an oath to be part of that government, be an agent, and that oath is done through their you're actually signing oaths. They're just not in the quoted oath form. You're making pledges. It's the same thing. And so when we realize that, and realize that they've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years, what is the solution? The solution is to quit pledging, quit paying taxes, and realize that you have the right to not worry about import and export. You don't have to worry about Caesar. Give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and collect and distribute that which is yours to that which is like you. You don't have to distribute it to the commercial system. But just because it's within a commercial system doesn't mean that you can't collect it from that commercial system. You have to have ways and means that are of equal rights, just like everybody else. So if perchance I do want to go out and buy up all the toilet paper, I can do so for collection and distribution purposes. So again, like I said, I'll post all these links that we've gone over so you can review them. The video that we went over first to begin with, the starting point is 31 minutes and 30 seconds, and you listen on through until about 32 minutes and 30 seconds. It's about a 1 minute section there to listen to that, pay attention to it, and realize that's what they're doing, is they're telling you you've made an oath, you owe taxes, and they want your children. Literally, they're still doing that today. And to escape that, we have to realize, or to free ourselves from that supposed bind, we have to realize that they instituted the same concept in the 5 Mile Act in 1665, saying that if you violated their regulations and wouldn't abide by them, then you got exiled out of the town. You weren't allowed to come back in the town unless you made a pledge of peace, never to rebut the government again, to pay taxes and go forth in their commercial system as they say so. And that's again reiterated 1665, and here we are in 2020, and you're still required, according to them, enforced and coerced at the hospital under duress, and even today they threaten to take your children if you don't sign that document in the best interest of the children. Well, the best interest they can come up with is for the operation of a utility in a foreign trade zone as a resident, which needs to be deemed necessary, and the only ones allowed are federal, state, or municipal agents or persons contracted with. Sorry, I don't hold any contracts with you. Not any valid contracts. Now, those presumed contracts that might still exist on the record, bring them forth. Let's go. Let's talk about them. Don't sit there and accuse me with some kind of bench warrant. Let's get them out in the open. You know? So think about this stuff. And again, I'll post all this stuff so you guys can review it again. It's very important to realize your foreign status. You are not a resident. You cannot possibly be a resident unless you are actually employed in the performance of the functions of public office on a municipal, county, state, or federal level, or in contract with thereof. In other words, like say you're a bonding company, you provide a bail bonds. Say you're a notary, or you're a clerk for the local court, or you're a security guard for the local courthouse, or you're a police officer working for the municipality. Those are agents and principals of that. But if you don't work for them, you're not an agent for them. But remember, they also construe this through McDonald's. You filled out an employment application, and you gave up a social security number. That's a security instrument known as an obligation in the United States. In that capacity, you acted as an agent. You have to correct that. It's going to take a lot of us doing a lot of things to get these people to realize I can't fill out a job application, but what I can do is accept your offer as extended to contract with you. Employment application is just a different type of contract. So think about it. And remember, folks, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. I love you all. Peace. I'll post my PayPal link if you can send me some love. I always appreciate that. As well as sharing this stuff too. Please share it. Everybody else needs to hear this and learn it and be able to at least have it put in front of them if they're going to be open-minded enough and want to listen to it. So please do so. Pass it on. I don't know everybody out there, so I'm going to pass it on. I want you to pass it on to people I don't know. So again, hit that PayPal link when I get it posted. Give me about 5 minutes and that'll be back up. In the meantime, again, God bless. Thanks for listening. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't be doing it. I love y'all.